Anytime a pioneer comes along and introduces ideas that fall outside of the mainstream scientific orthodoxy, at best, they're going to get brushed aside and ignored. At worst, they're going to be maligned, ridiculed, and even persecuted. Of course, the most famous example of this is Galileo, but we've seen it in more recent times with figures as prominent as Nikola Tesla and Richard Feynman. Fortunately, Dr. Bengston's work falls on the lighter end of the resistance scale, and I believe this has to do with how provocative the results of his experimental research have been. Ultimately, if his ideas carry weight and they're expounded upon and refined, it's going to have implications for our entire understanding of biology, psychology, consciousness itself, and the entire field of medicine. Now in this video, I want to give a little background information on Dr. Bengston, his professional pedigree, as well as a brief overview of some of the research and results that he's gotten. I hope you enjoy. Now, Dr. Bengston's professional career started in 1980 when he received his PhD from Fordham University in New York. For the past 40 years, he's been teaching courses in advanced statistics, research methods, and criminology at St. Joseph's College in New York. He's also the president of the Society for Scientific Exploration, which is a global think tank of researchers, scientists, professors who investigate anomalous and unexplained phenomena in scientific literature. Now, Dr. Bengston's work has been published in the Oxford University Press, Global Advances in Health and Medicine, and others. His research has been carried out at over a dozen universities, including Queens College, Brown University, Arizona State, Thomas Jefferson University, and on, with his funding now exceeding over $1 million. So how did a sociology professor steeped in advanced statistical research come to understand healing as a psychic modality? So Dr. Bengston's interest in psychic phenomena started from a young age as a recreational curiosity. As a self-described skeptic, he remained firmly outside of the realm of belief or disbelief. It wasn't until 1971, after just finishing his undergraduate program, that Dr. Bengston became acquainted with Bennett Mayrick. Now, Mayrick had just discovered months before that he could perform psychic readings. As a rational skeptic himself, Mayrick actually brought Bengston on board to help him disprove that he had such ability, but they kept being confounded by the prolific accuracy of Mayrick's readings. Shortly thereafter, Mayrick discovered that while he was doing readings, he would actually get physical sensations, while the readee's ailments would subside. Now, endlessly curious, they launched a campaign and did hundreds of treatments and readings in an effort to get some sort of insight into what was going on here. So it was around this time that Bengston was introduced to the work of Bernard Grad, who was an oncology researcher at McGill University. Grad had done pioneering research into a psychic healer named Oscar Estebani. Under strict laboratory conditions, Estebani was able to produce profound healing effects in both mice and plants. Inspired by Grad's work and Mayrick's prolific successes, Bengston set out to get Mayrick into a laboratory. After a number of serendipitous events, Bengston met David Crinsley, who is a tenured and well-respected professor of geology at Queens College. Crinsley called in a couple favors and got Bengston lab time. When catastrophically, Mayrick backed out of the experiment last minute, Crinsley had to convince Bengston to step in as the healer in the experiment. Protesting that he had no such ability, Bengston eventually agreed and performed some of the methods that he and Mayrick had refined over their time together. Now, despite the anticipation of epic failure on all those involved, what ended up transpiring was the first full lifespan cure of mammalian cancer in lab mice ever recorded. Now, as an aside, mammalian cancer in lab mice is one of the most highly researched fields in oncology. The fatality rate is 100% between 14 and 27 days in all cases. So to say that these experiment results were surprising would be an understatement. when the results of the experiment caught the attention of Marvin Wasserman, who is the biology chair at Queens College. They set out to reproduce the experiment, except that this time, Bengston wanted to substitute other people as the healers. He wanted to use the most dismissive subjects possible, and he actually recruited Prinsley, Wasserman, and a number of grad students to stand in as the healers. After teaching them the method for a few weeks, they were each assigned a cancerous mouse. Each mouse remitted completely. These experiments have continued to be carried on for decades under more and more strict laboratory conditions. Dr. Bengston's anecdotal, clinical, and experimental research have uncovered a number of trends in the efficacy of this method. Now, even as his work gains traction, funding and lab time are notoriously difficult to get a hold of, and even that leaves more questions unanswered than answered. In an effort to cast a wider net, Dr. Bengston has made this method more or less publicly available in the hopes that those interested would take it, learn it, experiment and play with it, and ultimately relay their experience so that together we can refine and further understand this technique. For more information on Dr. Bengston's research and methodology, I highly recommend you read the book The Energy Cure and listen to the audiobook Hands-On Healing. BengstonResearch.com is a fairly exhaustive list of Dr. Bengston's journal publications, and that would be a great place to start for a deeper understanding of some of the research that Dr. Bengston's doing. Now, if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. The bell icon will let you know whenever I put out a new video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.